Hey, and welcome to week 2 in the course. This is going to be the first of 2 weeks where we begin to explore the Hebrew Bible, or what Christians call the Old Testament. We call it the Hebrew Bible because it was the first, it was originally the Bible for the Jewish or Hebrew people. It's their sacred text. Christians have adopted it as one of their two libraries of sacred texts. Christians also use the New Testament as well. So we're going to be looking at those over the next couple weeks. Your readings will be very connected to that. The Genesis reading looks at the creation story or stories in the Old Testament, as well as um, the early Jewish understanding of the world. There's been a lot of controversy about the understanding of creation. There's been creation and evolution debates. One thing I want to say right off the top is that there are Christians who believe that God created using 6 literal days. There are Christians who believe that God has used millions or billions of years and evolutionary processes to create the world. Extremists on both sides want to put the two against each other, pit the two against each other. So sometimes you'll have creationists who will say, well, if you don't believe God created in 6 literal days, then you can't be a Christian. You'll also have evolutionists who will argue that, well, Christians can't believe in evolution, or God didn't use evolution. So you have people on both sides of those issues. So just be aware of that. Your right readings for this week get into relationship. The idea within the Hebrew Bible, within Christianity, is that people were created to live in relationship with each other and relationship with God. The chapters also look at beauty. I do want to make a quick note to you that N.T. Wright gets into human sexuality here, and human sexuality is sometimes sharply debated within Christianity. There are Christians kind of all over the spectrum in terms of what they think about human sexuality. The biblical texts about sexuality and homosexuality are pretty highly debated within the church. So there are some churches that are very open and affirming. Some churches that are believe that homosexuality is a sin, and there are numbers of churches that are continuing to wrestle with what they think and what they believe about human sexuality. So I want you to be very aware of that, and just know that I don't agree with everything that N.T. Wright has to say here, and you don't have to agree with him either. I think overall N.T. Wright has a lot of good things to say in this book, but it's okay to be critical of any author that you encounter. So be aware of that. For this week, in terms of assignments for this week, you only have the readings and the discussion forum, but I want you to be aware that you have a church visit paper that's coming up in a few weeks, and I want to give you a couple words here. In this paper, what I want you to do is to go and visit a church that is different than what you grew up in, okay? So if you didn't grow up Christian, you didn't grow up going to church, then the world is your oyster. You can choose any kind of a church to go and visit. If you grew up Catholic, I'd like you to do something different and go to a Protestant church. There are over 40,000 different Protestant churches. If you grew up Protestant, you can go to a Catholic church or an Orthodox church or another place of worship. There are a lot of different choices. Note that there is some research that is involved in this paper. Not a ton, but some, okay? So I'll put more information down for, I'll give you more information for this paper so that you'll know exactly what I'm looking for in it. But note that when you are choosing a church, you need to know exactly what kind of church that you're choosing. So, for instance, there are maybe 25 or 30 different kinds of Baptist churches. So you can't just say, well, I went to a Baptist church and here's what Baptists believe. You need to know what kind of Baptist church. So maybe it was a Free Will Baptist church, or Southern Baptist, or Fellowship Baptist. If you choose a Methodist church, is it a Free Methodist? Is it American Methodist Episcopal? Is it United Methodist? There are a lot of different kinds of Methodist churches and a lot of different kinds of other churches that kind of go under the basic brand name. So you'll need to look into that, right? I want to encourage you not to go to a non-denominational church, not because I disagree with non-denominational churches. It's just that this will make your life a little bit more difficult for this paper. Not impossible, but more difficult. If you do decide to go to a non-denominational church, and many mega churches are non-denominational, then you'll need to do a little bit of research into who the non-denominationals are and where did they come from, this movement, which is very prevalent within the North American church context. Okay, so if you have questions, you are welcome to reach out to me. You've still got a number of weeks until this paper is due, but I just wanted to make you aware and give you a heads up. Again, in terms of this week, we're looking at the beginning of looking at the Old Testament and the early readings in the Old Testament, Genesis 1, chapter 1 through chapter 22 particularly, and Psalm 104. I want you to be looking at, what is this literature? This is ancient literature from the ancient Hebrew people that's over 2,000 years old. What are they saying? How do they understand themselves and the world around them? All right, so have a great week. Again, reach out to me with any questions, any concerns that you have.